You're merely filling in until my ex-boyfriend sorts out his life, she confessed. So I handed her the permanent spot. Now he's locked up again, and she's pleading for a spot back on my reserve list. Hey everyone, before we dive into the story, please subscribe to the channel and smash that like button if you'd like more tales like this one. Thank you. For 3 full years, I shaped my entire existence around Hannah. I wasn't simply her partner. I was her rock. When her vehicle broke down, I co-signed for the replacement loan. When her father fell ill, I drove her to the hospital every weekend, comforted her through the tears, and ensured she didn't skip meals. When her credit cards reached their limits, I assisted with debt consolidation and helped her build a spending plan. I represented solid footing after the upheaval in her world. I believe that showed I was a solid companion. I had no clue I was only serving as a reliable stand-in. The warning signs appeared gradually, barely noticeable. There was a password-protected album on her phone labeled Old Times. The occasional far-off expression in her gaze, a melancholy, longing smile that never seemed directed at me. When I inquired, she'd brush it off with, "Just old recollections, Alex. Nothing to stress over." And I believed her. I was naive. The true turning point arrived 2 weeks earlier. I was preparing supper, her preferred dish, chicken parmesan. She walked in, complexion ashen, eyes fixed on her screen. "Jake's released," she uttered, her tone empty. I halted mid-stir. Jake, the shadow that lingered over our bond. Her former lover. The one with the magnetic grin and criminal history. The one who convinced her to pour her savings into a scam, resulting in his fraud conviction and her financial ruin. I'd been the one to assist her recovery. Released on parole? I inquired, striving for composure. Served his sentence. Behaved well. She eventually met my eyes, her face impossible to read. He texted me. A chill gripped my insides. "Sweetheart, perhaps that's a chapter best left closed, for your well-being." She recoiled as though struck. "You can't comprehend our connection. It was complex. Emptying your savings account looks pretty clear-cut to me," I replied, the remark escaping before I could restrain it. Anger flared in her eyes, something I hadn't witnessed in ages. "You never truly knew him. You don't grasp his struggles. He was adrift, and I let him down. I let him down." The phrase lingered heavily between us, stifling. For 3 years I'd assumed I was supporting her healing. Now it dawned on me. In her perspective, she'd merely been marking time, anticipating an opportunity to repair things with him. The days that followed grew strained. Her phone became an extension of her hand, fingers dancing rapidly, a subtle, private grin on her face. The grin I'd once assumed was meant for me. She grew remote during film evenings, absent-minded when I shared details of my workday. The bedrock I'd painstakingly constructed was shifting into quicksand beneath me. Everything exploded on a stormy Tuesday. She'd claimed to be out with friends, yet returned reeking of inexpensive liquor from a dive bar her circle despised. She was explosive, a tempest searching for a target. I was tidying the kitchen, attempting to offer breathing room. "You're obsessively neat," she mumbled, swaying in the doorway. Everything ordered, so utterly routine. I set the scrubber aside. "Apologies for keeping our place clean, Hannah. See, that," she gestured carelessly. "That passive-aggressive decent guy nonsense. I wish you'd lose your temper just once, truly explode." I inhaled deeply, steadying myself. "I'm not going to rage because you're intoxicated. Let's get you rested." "I refuse to sleep," she barked, her tone fracturing. She lurched into the living area and sank onto the sofa, face hidden in her palms. The act of furious inebriation vanished, giving way to genuine, anguished despair. I approached, worry clashing with mounting apprehension. I perched on the coffee table's edge, facing her. "Just open up, hon. Whatever's wrong, we'll manage it. We always manage." She lifted her head, eyeliner streaked into black streaks beneath her lids. A harsh, empty chuckle escaped her. "That's exactly the issue. You're perpetually steady, always present. It's oppressive." The term struck like a fist, oppressive. Every ounce of aid, every bit of devotion, had become a burden to her. "Sorry for being dependable," I responded, vulnerability piercing my composed facade. "No, you missed the point," she said, shaking her head like I was dim. "With you everything's simple, secure. It's like residing in a flawlessly decorated, climate-regulated space. But with Jake," her stare drifted again, wearing that same wistful expression from her device. With Jake it felt alive. It was passion. It was chaotic, agonizing, magnificent. He reached a side of me you'll never discover. The space seemed to spin. My pulse thundered in my ears. Jake, the man who wiped out your savings and ended up behind bars. That's your version of authentic. Her focus returned sharply, and for the first time every pretense dissolved. The intoxication, the instability, all fused into an icy, horrifying lucidity. I've always been in love with him, she declared, voice quiet yet firm. Each syllable a deliberate wound. I was simply holding out until he fixed himself. She hesitated, allowing the brutality of her admission to settle, making certain I absorbed every bit. You were merely a stand-in, Alex. A secure landing spot until he became available. Stand-in. The term reverberated through the hushed room, erasing 3 years instantly. Every shared joke, every peaceful dawn, every concession I'd offered, all evaporated. I wasn't her equal. I was a benchwarmer, a short-term resident, the living version of a spare couch. I remained silent. Words failed me. Nothing remained worth voicing. Our whole shared past had been reframed, reducing me to a minor annotation. I rose from the table. My motions felt languid, intentional, as though wading through thick liquid. I regarded her, the woman I'd believed I understood, and sensed only emptiness. No fury, no sorrow, merely a vast, frigid void. I pivoted and headed toward the bedroom. Our bedroom. The notion now seemed absurd. Where are you headed? She called, voice edged with abrupt panic. She'd anticipated conflict. She'd anticipated weeping. She'd anticipated pleading. My quietness was the sole reaction she hadn't anticipated. I offered no reply. I retrieved my worn travel bag from the closet's upper shelf. I proceeded with a disciplined serenity that felt foreign. I gathered enough clothing for a week, grooming items, passport, and the secure case containing vital papers. I abandoned every gift she'd ever presented. I abandoned the existence we'd constructed together. Returning to the living area, bag slung over my shoulder, she stood twisting her fingers. Her earlier assurance had vanished, supplanted by confused alarm. Where are you headed? We have to discuss this, she insisted, pitch rising. I paused at the entrance and finally met her gaze. My face remained expressionless, sealed shut. No, we don't, I stated, tone soft yet unbreakable. You've expressed it all. You've made yourself completely understood. That's all. You're simply departing. After 3 years, her sense of entitlement stunned me. She'd just demolished my reality, yet she appeared astonished I refused to remain for the aftermath. You described me as a provisional element, I said, fingers on the handle. My assignment has ended. I swung the door wide, fresh evening breeze flooding inside. I gave her one final glance, standing amid the wreckage of the world I'd created for her. Best wishes with that blaze, Hannah, I remarked. May it not consume you. I closed the door firmly. The soft snap of the latch felt like the gentlest, most conclusive noise I'd ever encountered. The detachment persisted throughout the journey to the budget airport motel. A peculiar, vacant sensation, as though an emotional procedure had erased feeling. No music played. I drove wordlessly, accompanied only by tire hum on damp pavement and the steady rhythm of windshield blades. Stand-in, the term had scrubbed me bare. No space existed for rage or mourning. The self that might experience them had been invalidated. The motel chamber was neutral-toned and clinical. It carried the scent of cleaner and old ventilation. I set my travel bag on the rack, repeating the careful motions from earlier. I settled on the mattress edge, palms resting on thighs, and simply inhaled. I braced for agony to arrive. I braced for the suffocating burden of 3 wasted years, for flashes of her features, for echoes of her laughter. Yet nothing arrived. Only stillness. My device vibrated repeatedly in my pocket. I retrieved it. Her name illuminated the display again and again. Hannah. Alex, please. Hannah, you can't depart this way. Hannah, we should converse maturely. Hannah, are you seriously this spiteful? Hannah, respond. I observed the screen glow, each alert a faint disturbance on my tranquility. They contained no remorse. They were commands. Commands for my focus, my feelings, my effort. Commands that I engage in the spectacle she'd orchestrated. I cleared the alerts, then navigated to settings, located her contact, and selected block. The step felt surgical, definitive, more satisfying than any furious reply I might have composed. The following dawn I rose at 6, routine hour. The quiet in the motel felt altered, not vacant, serene. I jogged. I handled professional correspondence. I browsed property listings and began apartment hunting. Existence had simplified into straightforward, sequential duties. Hannah's turmoil belonged to a remote land I'd left behind forever. 7 days later, I consulted an attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense professional called Ms. Davies. I outlined the circumstances plainly, without emotion. We shared residence for 3 years. Joint lease, joint auto financing where I'm guarantor, joint services. I wished to terminate every financial and legal link swiftly and neatly. Ms. Davies nodded, recording. Separation motive? I gazed through her office window. The skyline appeared tidy and structured from this height. She revealed our whole partnership was provisional until her prior companion became accessible again. Ms. Davies paused typing, peering over her lenses. Understood. No compassion offered. Merely a crisp nod. That clarifies the emotional aspect, if not the legal one. We'll issue formal lease termination notice and submit documents removing you from the financing. She'll need to refinance independently. Excellent, I replied. It marked my first taste of genuine contentment. I sought no revenge. I was methodically withdrawing my role as her backup plan. I visited the residence one Tuesday midday, aware she'd be employed. I'd coordinated with the building manager for entry. Stepping inside resembled entering a theater post-performance. Visually unchanged, yet lifeless. I avoided nostalgia. I headed directly to remaining possessions: literature, workstation PC, cherished knife collection from my grandfather. I packed them into containers I'd supplied. I hesitated beside a shelf photograph. Us during a trail excursion, grinning, breeze tousling hair. I studied my own expression, the authentic joy captured there. I felt only remote sympathy for that version of myself. He was unaware his tenure was limited. I left the image behind. It belonged to the stand-in. While hauling the final container, my phone sounded. Mark, one of our shared acquaintances. I nearly ignored it, but Mark was reasonable. Alex, buddy, he began, tone uneasy. Hannah's in shambles. She claims you disappeared? What's happening? I set the container in the corridor and secured the residence for good. She stated explicitly that I was merely a stand-in until her incarcerated ex was freed, Mark. She declared our partnership fraudulent. Prolonged quiet followed. Damn, Mark muttered. She claimed it was merely an argument. Indeed, damn, I answered flatly. Thus, I'm not disappearing. I'm departing a foundation built on deception. Kindly refrain from sharing this contact. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Jesus, the stand-in. I'm sorry, Alex. No need, I replied sincerely. It was the clearest statement she ever offered. I ended the call and lifted the container. The page had turned. The subsequent 60 days taught silent rebuilding. I secured a modest, luminous residence across town. Large panes, zero history. I acquired furnishings gradually, selecting solely what appealed. Gym visits became intentional rather than escapist. Bodily change occurred gradually. Psychological shift happened swiftly. Hannah's turbulence dissipated, revealing my existence with vivid sharpness. I experienced authentic, unmistakable contentment in my minimal, tranquil space, more than in years prior. Fragments of Hannah's decline reached me like debris from a distant wreck. It commenced with an anonymous message a month later. Unknown. Hey Alex, Stacy here. I realize Hannah aired, but Jake's complete trash. He moved in days after your exit and refuses employment. She's wretched. I erased and blocked. Then a tense call from Mike, another former associate. Just informing you. Things are rough there. Jake's controlling, volatile. They had a loud dispute in Grove's lot recently. Police nearly involved. Regrettable to learn. I responded, pure courtesy autopilot. Yeah, anyway, his theatrics are wearing thin on everyone. Take care, Alex. Click. The most gratifying retribution arrived through an old Google notification I'd established while aiding Hannah's legal matter against him. I'd overlooked it. Inbox alert. New match for Jake Morrow. I opened. Local police log excerpt. Arrested for parole breach and attempted theft. Jake Morrow, 31, detained following unsuccessful entry at Elm Avenue construction zone. Female associate Hannah R., Interviewed and released pending review. Items recovered from joint dwelling. I reclined. So the inferno she'd preferred to my oppressive reliability had scorched her, precisely as I'd foreseen dispassionately. Jake returned to confinement. Hannah was implicated, interrogated, released. I pictured the shame. Officers raiding her home. Onlookers observing. The fitting, theatrical conclusion to her ill-fated passion. My device buzzed again. Another unfamiliar number. Voicemail this time. Curiosity, detached, prompted playback. Her tone emerged ragged, frenzied, devoid of former poise. Unbelievable. I'm genuinely in crisis. Everything's collapsing, and you're just sitting smugly. Jake's incarcerated again. Cops confiscated my computer. Eviction looms. I acknowledge my mistakes, but you're meant to be decent. You're meant to assist. Message concluded. I regarded the device. Here lay her raw essence. No regret for deceiving me 3 years. No introspection. Merely enraged insistence that I, the declared stand-in, resolve her self-inflicted fallout. She still viewed me as utility. Decent person was merely another expected performance. I erased the recording. Blocked anew. I surveyed my fresh residence. Sunset poured through expansive glass, bathing the orderly area. Tranquil. Mine. Hannah evoked only faint, scientific curiosity. Her panic was mere static. The hush in my renewed existence was precious. The quiet following her frantic message signified triumph. A portal not merely shut, fortified. I'd erected a serene stronghold. Her disorder remained external, faint as a breeze. Yet Hannah never honored limits. Renewed efforts emerged, each more obvious and desperate, tugging at guilt. First, an inbox message and promotions. Subject, I'm shattered. Alex, I realize you despise me. I know I merit no compassion, but I'm adrift. Jake's likely gone long-term. Eviction due to the incident. Nowhere to turn. Motel reeks of disinfectant and defeat. I keep replaying how I discarded the sole positive element I possessed. You were never temporary. I was frightened and uttered something awful to drive distance. I felt undeserving. Truthfully, I've always cherished you. I was too damaged to recognize it. Please meet. I need your presence. Need proof goodness survives. Forever yours, Hannah. I scanned once. Deleted. Effortless. Pure fabrication spun from victimhood. Undeserving. Yet she'd felt entitled using my resources. Always cherished. Jake's specter contradicted. She sought not me, my steadiness, the cushion she now craved desperately. Days later, old area code call. Voicemail ignored. Later, Stacy, her emissary. I listened impassively. Alex, Hannah's self-destructing. Lost it all. Jake abandoned her with legal trouble and despair. You were always reliable. You can't desert her now. She's alone. It's heartless. Predictable manipulation. I returned the call. Stacy answered instantly, hopeful. Alex, thank goodness. I cut in evenly. She declared our bond illusory. Desertion suggests obligation. None existed. She's faced consequences. Stacy pressed, tone sharpening. Hasn't she suffered sufficiently? You'll be spiteful and allow homelessness. No reaction bait taken. Not spiteful, absent. Distinct concepts. Refrain from contacting. Click. Blocked. The protective perimeter shrank steadily. Then the extreme measure. Saturday morning. Coffee brewing, sunlight flooding. Work line, recently changed, vibrated. Unknown. Foreboding settled. I answered warily. Her voice. Raw. Sobbing weapon. Alex, don't disconnect. I'm hospitalized. Silence compelled continuation. I ingested something. Insufficient, apparently. No escape visible. Psych hold. Nurse suggested contacting someone who cares. You're my only option. Manipulation transparent, almost admirable. No plea for aid, a snare. Concern would ensnare. Indifference would vilify. My response detached, clinical. Our staff ensuring safety. Yes, but then you're appropriately placed. My attendance would hinder progress. Best wishes for recovery. Hannah, farewell. Steady hand disconnected. No remorse, only deep revulsion. She'd wielded supreme leverage. I refused engagement. Blocked. Final contact severed. Half a year elapsed. Seasons shifted. My existence ceased reacting to the past. It simply was satisfying. For months with Clara, landscape designer. Serene gaze, natural humor, mutual self-sufficiency. Partnership, not salvage. Brunch spot, lively, sunlit, sharing pancakes, discussing upcoming getaway. Relaxed, content, engaged, unlike with Hannah. Familiar grasp on shoulder, possessive, spine stiffened. Hannah. She appeared weathered, not aged, eroded. Budget attire, dull strands. Desperate hunger in her stares sweeping me. Clara. Our meal, our serenity. Alex, we must speak. Immediately. Clara ignored entirely. Mere obstacle. Clara glanced questioningly. Subtle head shake. I'll manage. I faced Hannah, stance relaxed, as toward a minor disturbance. Hannah. Poor timing. Polite yet remote. Her facade splintered. Never convenient anymore. My existence destroyed. Jake's sentenced 5 years. Apartment gone. Waiting tables. Nothing remains. Expecting response. Outrage. Sympathy. Received none. Noted. I stated neutrally, as reporting mild rain. Indifference stung. Eyes widened. Tears of fury and disbelief. You feel nothing? After all we shared? Reversal absolute. No longer stand-in. I was sovereign, she supplicant. I angled toward Clara, warmth returning. Clara, meet Hannah. Hannah, meet Clara. Deliberate, courteous, crushing. Recognized her while underscoring total insignificance. Hannah gaped, speechless. Gazed at clasped hands, quiet closeness. So that's it, she breathed, outrage rising. You swapped me instantly? I met her eyes, delivering unfiltered reality. Calm, judicial. I didn't swap you, Hannah. Voice steady, resonant. A stand-in exists temporarily, when a lasting arrangement presented itself. Brief, sincere glance at Clara, faint smile, then back. I ceased the interim duty. Words lingered, dismantling illusions. Our arrangement ended the moment you defined my purpose. Tone eased to gentle dismissal. Concentrate on your circumstances henceforth. I pivoted fully toward Clara, lifted cup, sipped. As I mentioned, late September suits the Highlands perfectly. Silence more final than any door slam. No longer merely screening calls, her very existence dismissed. A specter I'd ceased acknowledging. After endless seconds, choked noise, then hurried heel strikes retreating. I never glanced back. Unnecessary. Clara's hand squeezed mine, genuine, grounding. You all right? She murmured. I met her gaze, sunlight in her hair, promise in her expression, and the final hollow space warmed steadily. Better than ever, I answered. For the first time since stand-in pierced, I knew it true. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and like if you enjoyed. What are your thoughts on this story? Drop them in the comments.